There were a ton of new gaming monitor and PC gaming announcements at CES 2026. Don't buy a gaming monitor or build or upgrade a PC without watching this video. Welcome back to PC Builder, I'm Jason. We just got back from the Consumer Electronics Show 2026. It's the largest tech showcase in the world. Now buried under all the AI, AMD, NVIDIA, and Intel all made major announcements along with new PC tech from ASUS, MSI, Gigabyte, ASRock, and others. Buckle up for a rapid fire review of all the coolest gaming tech coming in 2026. If you get value out of this video, please give it a like and of course subscribe for more cool PC content. Let's jump into it. This video is sponsored by VIP SCD Key. Say goodbye to crazy expensive Windows licenses and that terrible Activate Windows watermark. Right now, use the links in the video description, head over to VIP SCD Key and get a Windows 11 OEM license for a great price. Pick your product license, then use the PC Builder discount code PC25 for an additional 30% off. Go to the activation settings on your PC, put in the code, and boom! Windows is fully licensed for a crazy low price. And they have Microsoft Office licenses too. Use the links in the video description. All right, let's start off with NVIDIA's gaming tech announcements. Now, of course, if you watch NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang's long keynote address at CES, it was basically all AI. But NVIDIA did release a separate video detailing their gaming announcements. The first up, of course, is NVIDIA's DLSS 4.5. That includes their second generation transformer model for DLSS upscaling, and of course, even more fake frames with their multi-frame generation. NVIDIA now claims DLSS 4 is supported in over 250 games. Remember that number when we get to AMD's FSR game support claims later in the video. Diving into the upscaling changes in DLSS 4.5 over DLSS 4, NVIDIA claims the new second generation transformer model improves image quality, but at a cost of performance. DLSS has 3 preset modes, each offering a different level of image quality and FPS. While the FPS increase does vary by game, in testing at 1440p, DLSS 4 quality mode typically offers around a 30% FPS boost over native rendering. Balance trades some image quality for roughly 40% FPS boost, and performance mode offers noticeably worse image quality for around a 50% FPS boost. NVIDIA is now claiming DLSS 4.5 improves image quality such that performance mode is now on par with native rendering, but at an increased cost to FPS performance. Now, early testing by some outlets suggests that while DLSS 4.5 improves areas that DLSS 4 struggles in, particularly in sharpness, it also introduces some of its own image qualities. So of course we're going to have to wait for a more detailed analysis. Now several outlets have already tested the FPS performance loss from using DLSS 4.5 over DLSS 4, and it comes at a significant cost, particularly to older RTX 20 and 30 series GPUs. Both Hardware Unboxed and Computer Base have published FPS benchmarks found that while DLSS 4.5 is about 10% slower than DLSS 4 on average if you use an RTX 50 series GPU, on the 30 series GPUs, it can be up to 30% slower, and it was often worse than native rendering performance. On 20 series GPUs, it seems almost never to be worth using, as it was typically slower than native rendering. In other words, the image quality would have to be significantly better than actual native rendering to even want to turn it on. Even when the RTX 40 series GPUs were found to struggle with DLSS 4.5 in a couple of titles where upscaling performance was just barely better than native rendering. Hardware Unboxed also noticed that the performance impact seemed to be worse on slower GPUs, so worse on an RTX 5070 than a 5070 Ti, for instance. Now, I do want to caution, this is still technically in beta until January 13th. So we might see further improvements before the official launch. If you have an NVIDIA GPU and you want to try it out yourself, just jump into the NVIDIA app, go to the settings, then click About, and then check the box that reads Opt into Access Beta. That's going to allow you to download the new driver and either test it out in a game-by-game basis, or you can set the driver level override to latest, which you can find under Graphics and then Global Settings. For the multi-frame generation upgrade on DLSS 4.5, NVIDIA says that RTX 50 series GPUs will go from AI generating up to 3 extra frames per GPU rendered frame to up to 5 AI generated frames per GPU rendered frame. Frame generation is very controversial as the generated frames don't actually interact with the game engine and thus don't actually reduce game latency. In fact, they often add quite a bit of latency. That's why most tech outlets refer to this as a smoothing technology and not an FPS boosting technology as NVIDIA does. This feature launches in spring 2026 with no specific launch date given. NVIDIA also announced G-Sync Pulsar, an upgrade to their variable refresh rate technology on gaming monitors that, like the more popular AMD FreeSync, prevents screen tearing. Now, using a different type of backlight strobing, NVIDIA showed that this can greatly increase monitor clarity. The technology is aimed at basically bringing LCD gaming monitors closer to the image quality of OLEDs. Now, given how cheap high refresh rate OLED gaming monitors have become in 2026, with prices now under $400 regularly, and the fact that they offer better image quality, it isn't clear what kind of market is out there for these new LCD gaming monitors with the G-Sync Pulsar technology. This is also one area where AMD is really dominant, with most monitors offering FreeSync support with only G-Sync compatibility rather than any G-Sync hardware modules. So we'll have to wait and see on pricing. Of course, the announcement NVIDIA didn't make, the long-rumored RTX 50 Super Series. Before AI data center demand destroyed the RAM market, we had expected NVIDIA to follow the one-year anniversary of the 50 series launch with a super refresh, mostly aimed at bringing additional VRAM to their existing GPU lineup with an RTX 5070 Super 18GB and 24GB versions of the 5070 Ti Super and RTX 5080 Super. Since we weren't expecting much in the way of a performance increase on these cards, it was mostly focused on that VRAM increase, which just got a whole lot more expensive thanks to AI data centers eating all the RAM and SSDs in the world. Now, I went over the rumored specs in our 2026 GPU launches video. You can check that out for a deeper dive. The rumor is NVIDIA has pushed these GPUs back to the third quarter of 2026, but may cancel them entirely. Now, I also personally think a third, more likely option exists. They just launched the Supers with the same VRAM amounts as the original cards, and they slightly tuned them up, basically overclocked them, along with, of course, higher GPU prices to offset those VRAM cost increases. But NVIDIA didn't say anything at CES 2026. So only time will tell. All right, jumping over to AMD CES 2026 announcements, which we did a whole video for, so I'm just gonna give you a very quick summary. You can watch the full video for a deeper dive. Like NVIDIA, if you watch AMD CEO Lisa Su's CES keynote, it was a 3-hour snooze fest of just repeating AI as many times as possible, clearly aimed to cozy up to as many powerful billionaires as possible, from Jeff Bezos to President Trump. AMD left it to the tech media to actually announce their real products, consumer products after all, namely the Ryzen 7 9850 X3D desktop gaming CPU and the Ryzen AI 400 series mobile CPUs and even desktop CPUs. The Ryzen 9850 X3D is basically an overclocked Ryzen 9800 X3D. Runs at 400 megahertz faster, and AMD's gaming claims basically give it about a 3% average FPS increase over that existing Ryzen 9800 X3D at 1080p with an RTX 5090. That would make the Ryzen 9850 X3D technically the fastest gaming CPU in the world, and way faster than anything Intel has right now, at least until they drop their upcoming X3D CPUs in late 2026. AMD says it will keep selling the 9800 X3D alongside the new 9850 X3D, and they didn't give a specific launch date or pricing for the 9850 X3D. While AMD did not announce the long-rumored Ryzen 9 9950 X3D2, a dual 3D V-Cache version of the Ryzen 9950 X3D, it did get a lot of confirmation that it is coming after CES. Alienware posted a promo of its upcoming gaming desktop featuring, of course, the 9950 X3D2, including the entire specs page, with confirmation that the dual 3D V-Cache is going to be called X3D2 architecture, along with the 16 cores and 32 threads. And when speaking with AMD representatives at CES, German tech media outlet Computer Base were told to stay tuned when they asked about the Ryzen 9950 X3D2 launch. Now that our NDA is lifted, I can confirm that we were never briefed on this CPU ahead of CES, so it is possible that it just wasn't ready in time for CES. But it does seem to be coming in the early to mid part of 2026. All right, let's quickly touch on the Ryzen AI 400 series. It's mostly laptop and mobile focused. Does seem to be quite good for those mobile applications, but desktop gamers are going to likely want to ignore whatever Ryzen AI 400 series CPUs that come to desktop. They're just basically a refresh of the Ryzen 8000 series APUs, which are slower than a Ryzen 7500F due to having about half as much cache and also a lot less PCIe lanes as well. AMD seemed to confirm this, as they didn't even bother to give us any specific desktop models, names, or pricing, or even a launch date. AMD did hint it's looking to bring back a limited number of AM4 CPUs in the Ryzen 5000 lineup to help gamers counter the global memory shortage. AMD's David McAfee said it is looking to, quote, bring more supply and kind of reintroduce products back into the ecosystem, unquote. While all RAM prices have shot up, DDR4 RAM is still considerably cheaper than DDR5, at least right now, and quite a few gamers are still sitting on older AM4 CPUs like the Ryzen 2000 and 3000 series. A new Ryzen 5000 or even 5000 X3D CPU would allow them to drop an upgrade. Even gamers on older Intel CPUs with decent DDR4 DDR4 RAM could reuse their RAM into a new system upgrade. We've also seen that several motherboard manufacturers are ramping up production of DDR4 motherboards for both AM4 CPUs as well as Intel LGA 1700s for 12th, 13th, and 14th gen CPUs. No specifics yet, but it could be something as easy as shipping the Ryzen 5500 X3D to a global market outside of Latin America, or reintroducing the Ryzen 5800 X3D, which would probably create an insane amount of hype. It is possible that AMD could even manufacture these on a newer node. If you recall, the Ryzen 1600 AF was manufactured on an upgraded node, giving it similar performance to the Ryzen 2600 in early 2020. Fingers crossed on this one. The only AMD GPU news was that one or more elements of FSR Redstone was available in over 200 games. That number is shockingly close to the 250 announced by NVIDIA at CES. It's also way more than the over 70 titles that they promised to have by the end of 2025 during the first FSR 4 announcement early last year. We did go over the FSR 4 Redstone announcements made in December in our AMD CES 2026 video, linked in the video description if you want a deeper dive. Of course, the announcement we didn't get, no new graphics cards like the rumored RX 9080 XT or RX 9070 GRE 16GB. Just like with the RTX 50 Supers, likely due to the current RAM crisis and VRAM pricing. I still think it's possible we'll see an RX 9070 GRE 12GB shipping outside of China where it was launched last year, but no specific news yet. But AMD might be in trouble with Intel's quite shocking CES announcements. Intel announced their new Panther Lake Core Ultra 300 series mobile CPUs, along with the new Xe3 GPU architecture on its integrated graphics. Intel claims, and some very preliminary testing even backs this up, that the new Xe3 iGPU is 73% faster than AMD's best integrated GPU in the Radeon 890M. That would be a massive surprise and call into question AMD's dominance in the handheld gaming market and possibly even in console. Intel claims that its high-end gaming version of the Core Ultra 300 series would bring 10% more CPU performance than the previous generation 200 series as well. Of course, we didn't get any news on a potential ARC B770 announcement despite a lot of teasing and leaking around CES. Many thought this would be the time to announce the ARC B770 16GB, and rumored specs had up to 60% more GPU cores than the ARC B580 12GB, so expectations were really high. Now, rumors have long persisted that despite Intel's initial ARC GPU roadmap showing desktop graphics cards in each of the generations, the desktop ARC was effectively done after the B series, with everything collapsing into mobile. The ARC B580 Impress tour by the Intel graphics team last year kind of seemed to dispel that, but no new ARC desktop GPU mentions raised new doubts about whether or not desktop ARC is done. Though Intel's new Xe3 GPU architecture looks quite impressive and leaves us wondering if we will see a desktop Xe3 based GPU sometime in 2026. There were tons of new gaming monitor announcements at CES 2026. So let's start with what's new in OLED gaming monitors in 2026 with what feels like a refresh of the third generation QD OLED gaming monitors. Now this year, we're going to get a number of new 240 and 360Hz OLED gaming monitors with these technologies, including a new ultra-wide 360Hz, which looked insane. Gigabyte, ASUS, MSI, Acer, Samsung, and others are all launching what feels like the same gaming monitors in different shells. So let's focus on what's new with these. And we're going to call these the 4th gen QD OLED gaming monitors. The first thing you'll notice right away is improved text clarity and the removal of text fringing thanks to the new subpixel layout. Previous QD OLED gaming monitors use a triangle-shaped subpixel layout, but the newest version uses more of a linear pixel bar instead. Samsung has a confusing name for this called V-stripe, but they're actually not lined up in a V shape. Rather, the color subpixels are lined up together in vertical bars. In the models that we looked at from Gigabyte, ASUS, and MSI, I noticed what seemed to be significantly better text clarity, though it still isn't quite to LCD levels. Another new feature for these 4th gen QD OLED panels is a black film applied to the monitor, which increases the darkness of black. Now, current gen QD OLEDs can sometimes have edging around black areas that appear with a slightly reddish or even purple hazing in certain lighting environments. This black film helps absorb those hues, ensuring a deeper black visual experience on all parts of the monitor. Every monitor maker has a different name for this. Gigabyte calls it Obsidian Shield, MSI calls it Dark Armor, ASUS calls it Black Shield. Monitor companies are claiming this new film improves blacks by up to 40%, as well as making the monitor much more scratch resistant. Then of course we've got the 4th generation WOLED panels, which began launching last year, like the Gigabyte MO27Q2G and ASUS XG27AQ-WMG. 4th gen WOLED, it's considerably brighter than previous OLED panels, including the QD OLEDs, though they do trade off in other areas like text clarity. HDR brightness is one area where OLED brightness overall can be a little bit lacking, and Gigabyte showed off a new technology they called Hyper Nits, which they claim boosts brightness by up to 40% while preserving critical details and not washing out the image. This can be tuned using the on-screen display for both light and dark environments, as well as turned off completely. In the short time we played around with it on a side-by-side monitor comparison, I did prefer the one using Hyper Nits, though it did seem a little over-brightened at times. But we weren't able to do anything detailed with it, so just take this as a first impression as opposed to any kind of review. MSI is also introducing a technology with its next-gen QD OLEDs called Uniform Luminance, which allows users to customize the HDR brightness curve and smooth the brightness experience of the panel. Looks like we're also finally getting 5K gaming monitors at what seems like an affordable price. We played around with what seemed to be very similar 5K 165 to 180 Hz tandem monitors, which with a push of a button switch to 1440p 300 Hz. These are all mini LED LCD panels with improved HDR capabilities, but they are not OLED. The most impressive of the ones that we saw at CES was the MSI MPG 271 KRW16, a 27-inch mini LED monitor with over 2,300 local dimming zones. Now this model is a 5K 165 Hz and it switches to 1440p 330 Hz with a push of a button. With an incredible 218 pixels per inch, this monitor was a real standout against even a number of OLEDs in the booth. And of course, other gaming monitor companies have similar panels coming as well. All right, let's jump into PC components, starting with new and refined motherboard lineups from ASUS, ASRock, Gigabyte, and MSI. Now, each of these companies is working to tweak their existing Ryzen B850 and X870 lineup. Several of them are even offering refreshed LGA 1851 motherboards for Intel's Core Ultra 200 CPUs in the B860 and Z890 range. I did a short form video roundup for each of the 4 AIBs, so for a deeper dive, I'll link those videos down in the video description. But let's start off with ASUS, who's refreshing its ROG Strix and Tough motherboards in the B850 and X870 lineup. All the 2026 refreshes have the word Neo in the name and offered improved easy building features like quick GPU releases and toolless M.2 installation. ASUS is also working to get rid of PCIe bifurcation on the main GPU slot when you use a PCIe Gen 5 NVMe SSD at the same time. On many motherboards, too many to be quite honest, the main GPU slot runs at half bandwidth when a PCIe Gen 5 M.2 NVMe is run in the PCIe Gen 5 slot. While this is fine for even an RTX 5090, it's annoying for gamers and possibly hurts performance on more workstation-oriented PCs. ASUS's new setup allows users to use up to 2 Gen 5 NVMe's on compatible motherboards while retaining the full x16 PCIe GPU bandwidth. Another neat feature that ASUS is rolling out on top-end ROG Strix motherboards is a mag connector for AIOs, which removes the need for cables for the pump as well as any RGB or LCD screen. ASUS is considering rolling this feature out to other motherboards down the stack if it proves popular. ASUS is also introducing a black version of its existing Tough BTF back connector motherboard, which is currently only available in white, and a new white version of the B850 Tough motherboard as well as the X870E, including that they now feature fully white cable connections instead of black ones. All right, jumping over to ASRock quickly, they're basically doing a massive revamp of their budget and mid-range B850 motherboards along with a new high-end X870E Tai Chi motherboard. Their new, more budget-focused boards are called The Rock. No, not Dwayne Johnson, it's their new motherboards in black with very shiny metal finishes. Now these motherboards are basically designed to give you just enough and really look sharp. ASRock's also introducing the Challenger lineup of what feels like very mid-range gaming motherboards. The styling on these basically takes a page out of the current ASUS Tough with the blocky white lettering on a matte black finish. I absolutely love it, by the way. And at the same time, they're delivering really great rear I/O, built-in rear I/O shields, and they feel pretty premium for a mid-range motherboard. There are also white versions of the Challenger lineup, including the X871 as well. Then we've got the ASRock X870E Tai Chi OC Formula. That is ASRock's first OC Formula motherboard in years. This motherboard is designed for premium systems with insane I/O, great styling, and great connectivity. Then we've got Gigabyte's new motherboards, which are limited to the higher end for CES 2026. Gigabyte has new X3D focused motherboards in the X870E range, claiming the increased performance of the Ryzen 9800 X3D and upcoming Ryzen 9850 X3D through a smart OC setting. They also have some pretty impressive aesthetics, including a new Aero Wood motherboard that actually has wood on it, and a new black version of their popular white X870 Stealth motherboard with back connectors for an ultra clean look. Finally, MSI is releasing a couple of refreshed motherboards in its B850 and X870 lineup. These motherboards are going to feature the same toolless building features like the easy M.2 removal and GPU release buttons. All the refreshed motherboards have Max in the name, starting with the B850 Gaming Plus Wi-Fi Max, which now comes in all white. The new MSI Tomahawk B850 Max is the remake a lot of people had asked for, removing most of the green logoing and graphics for a more matte black look, very similar to the original and very popular B650 Tomahawk. MSI also has a similarly styled version of the B850M mortar in a micro ATX form factor. Finally, MSI is introducing a new X870 ITX motherboard with a ton of rear USB connectivity. That's a real pain point for most ITX boards. I really like that one. Now, there's always too much to cover at CES, so here's a rundown of some of the coolest tech that we saw at the show. First up are some great new coolers, starting with the MSI Core Frozer AP15 and AP17 air coolers with insanely cool digital readouts and ARGB. ASRock is getting into the AI cooler game with a couple of really innovative approaches. We saw their concept Taichi 360 cooler with an actual hologram on a 120mm fan, and their upcoming Steel Legend cooler with an LCD screen, but I was most impressed by their Aqua model. It brings open loop cooler features to AIOs, like a flow indicator and a clear pump head to actually watch the flow. ASUS has some really cool liquid AIO coolers coming with LCD screens, including ones which can directly connect to a mag connector on the motherboard, so you don't need any cables. We also had some neat PSU tech coming, like MSI's new solution to burning GPU cables on NVIDIA GPUs. MSI software paired with one of their high-end PSUs in the MPG AI 1600 TS, where you can not only get detailed information about the PSU itself and the power draw, but you can see the individual pinouts on the 12-volt high power connector and the current. ASRock is also coming in with some new PSU entries after stellar ones last year. They are entering the SFX PSU market with a shrunk down version of what I called one of the best PSUs of 2025 in the Phantom Gaming SFX 1000 watt. And they've got new entries in the mid-range lineup with the Steel Legend in a non-white color scheme and budget entries in the Pro series. I'm really excited to see how these score in reviews. Let me know down in the comments, what are you most excited about in 2026? And of course, in the future, what other kind of components would you like to see us cover? Now, there's not a lot of new cases this year, though we did see some cool stuff at the Hype booth, mostly for iBuyPower pre-builts only, but it did include a really cool looking AIO cooler with LCD screen and a couple of really cool tower air coolers, and I really begged them to bring those to the DIY PC market under the Hype brand. If you got value out of this video, please give it a like. Of course, subscribe for more cool PC content, like our full coverage of AMD's Ryzen 9850 X3D announcement right here and my full thoughts on it, or check out PC parts to avoid in 2026 right here. Don't wreck your PC with these parts in 2026. Check them out, and we'll catch you on the next one.